You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Banaji Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Banaji spine procedures, Alfred Banaji, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Banaji and your host, Kimberly Brumell.
Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Brumell, joined by my friend and show producer, Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here.
And we have Junior Mint over here, Jeff Wagstaff.
Hanging out in the candy aisle.
Oh, yes. And over there is world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Banaji of the Banaji Spine Institute.
I want to go to the candy place, too.
As soon as I said candy, Doc lit up like a Christmas tree.
But we have an exciting show lined up. We're going to talk about something called psychobiotics.
Momentarily.
Ooh, yes. So hang tight. And then, of course, we'll hear a story of recovery. And then we're going to talk about animal prosthetics.
Yeah. There's a guy up in Virginia they call the Dr. Doolittle of animal prosthetics. And it's a pretty cool story, so we'll talk to him.
And it's kind of a toss-up between what's new in American medicine today and Trump's triumphs. Yeah. And then, of course, our affiliates will get to hear about Southeastern guide dogs, which is going to be fun.
Another great story.
But right now, most of us are familiar with probiotics, but very few of us have heard of psychobiotics. And joining us right now is Natasha Trinev, a developmental scientist who is known as the mother of probiotics. She's on to tell us about it. So thank you for joining us, Natasha.
Thank you for having me. It's one of my favorite topics, and whatever gets people excited about the use of beneficial probiotic bacteria is where I want to be.
Well, and we talk about it all the time,
Many
probiotics,
times.
but
Yes.
I've never heard it used in conjunction for basically treating things like depression and autism and ADHD.
Yeah.
Never really heard of psychobiotics. Explain what they are for us, please.
Yeah, well, psychobiotics are just regular probiotics that, when taken in a sufficient amount, will have an effect on the second brain, which is found in our gut. And, you know, the processing of our food and the composition of our microbes in our gut affect what's being sent up the vagus nerve to our brain. And so we have found that, you know, by adding proper probiotic supplementation, changing your diet, can really affect things like, you know, depression, anxiety, mood swings. And we have seen it also help people with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and a number of neurological problems that seem to be besetting our society in larger numbers every year.
Right. Now, you just mentioned something interesting. You talked about the amount, the intake of the probiotics. What would be a sufficient amount?
Well, it's usually 2 billion colony-forming units of each specific strain.
Okay.
There's a lot of confusion in the market, and that's why I'm the author of the probiotic labeling standard that was read into congressional record in 1995. Because if you don't know the amount of each strain that's listed on the label and whether or not it can survive packaging, you know, lack of refrigeration that some of them offer, and the ability to survive gastric juices and bile, you won't get the benefits.
Okay.
So that's, you know, clear and simple. You have a very complex composition of bacteria, about 100 trillion in your gut, with about 160 species. And it's very difficult to impact that composition unless you have really healthy strains of probiotics that haven't been abused in shipping and handling, and have specific delivery systems that can survive the gastric juices and bile.
And how you know that?
Well, first of all, you make sure that your probiotic that you're buying is refrigerated throughout transport, that you don't believe the hype that there's such things as shelf-stable probiotics, because they're only shelf-stable at temperatures of 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's not feasible in transportation or mishandling by users. Second of all, the probiotic has to be packaged in dark amber glass to protect the probiotic bacteria from moisture and light. And third of all, it should be manufactured by the company that's selling it. Virtually 90% or more of the products sold in the marketplace are not manufactured by the people selling it. And since selling probiotic bacteria is rocket science, it should really be left only to the experts to sell and advise people how to use it effectively.
So only the pills that would be in a dark amber glass, or could it be in a thick white opaque container?
Well, if it's glass, because as far as I know, the whole purpose of protecting the probiotic organisms after they're produced is to make sure that they stay in the state of arrested growth.
Sure.
Because they have a desire to grow very rapidly. And if you have a closed-ended system like a capsule or a jar or a bottle, and they start growing rapidly with even the smallest amount of moisture or even the change in, from heat to cold can make that moisture available from the environment, and they'll start growing in the capsule, and especially if they're not protected from each other or the bacteria are touching each other in the capsule, they will compete for living space and survival, and you're going to have a completely different product when you ingest it from the time that it left its manufacturing plant.
Oh, that's interesting, because I take probiotics, so for me this is really interesting.
Natasha, I was never really familiar with probiotics until a couple years ago. Unfortunately, my wife and I both came down with a case of the H1N1 flu, which probiotics became very important as part of our recovery. And as you spoke earlier, the more we tried to learn about probiotics, the more we were confused. So a couple general rules in looking. You're saying those products that are on the shelves who aren't refrigerated would probably not be a good choice. Of the ones that are refrigerated, are there any name brands that you might recommend for people?
Yeah, I would recommend any product made by Natren, Natren. Healthy Trinity is the flagship product. It's the only probiotic in the world that's put in an oil matrix that protects it inside the capsule and protects the bacteria from stomach acid. It actually has third-party validation that those bacteria can survive over an hour at 1.7 pH in the stomach. And also the bacteria are bile tolerant, so they won't be affected by bile. And that's really what you need to be looking for, is that not only probiotics that are manufactured by the company that sells them, but that they have some science behind the delivery systems and survival.
Well, thank you so much. We could talk about this for days, but unfortunately we are out of time. Thank you very much, Natasha Trenev, a developmental scientist who is known as the mother of probiotics. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and I hope you'll give me a chance to educate more, because this is probably the most important concept for human health in the next century.
It certainly is.
You got a website, Natasha, where people can learn more?
Yes, it's natren.com. And also, if you would like to find Natren products, I'd like to say you can go to Vitamin Shop, Abby's Natural Foods, the Vitamin Discount Center, and the Palmetto Village Health Market. This has been my life's work. I've been involved in this field for 50 years. And before I sail off into the sunset, I'm hoping to teach people, because it's just too important not to be well educated in this.
Perfect.
It certainly is. Thank you so much, and we'll definitely have you on again to discuss.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Take care, you too.
Bye-bye.
And that's Natren, Natren.com.
And make sure you stay tuned, because you're going to hear a story of recovery coming up after the break. You're listening to American Medicine Today. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Banaji created, perfected, and patented the Banaji spine procedures. Using his genius, Banaji invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Banaji spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Banaji succeeds where others fail.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Banaji Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Banaji spine procedures, Alfred Banaji, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Banaji and your host, Kimberly Bermel.
Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. I am joined by Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here.
Jeff Wagstaff had to run down the hall. He's going to be right back. And we have world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Banaji, with us. Exactly.
You're running down the hall too, Doc?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, every time when somebody listens to the radio, they probably go, why do we need to listen to this Dr. Banaji? Well, the reason is he started off in traditional surgery. Well, it's true, Doc. I mean, all joking aside, when people listen, they think, why should we listen? What about them should we listen to? And you have such experience when it comes to spine surgery because you had orthopedic training, neurosurgical training, and you did traditional spine surgery. And when you saw that it wasn't yielding good results for your patients, you set out on a path, and it actually took you away from spine surgery for a little bit. And then you developed your targeted precision Banaji spine procedures that are exclusive to the Institute. And you don't like when patients we call it confusing patients, when you're conned into hardware fusion surgeries, because as we've spoken about before, a one-level fusion surgery has at least a 60% failure rate. If you have 2 or 3 levels fused, you're at an astounding 85% failure rate. Those things should be left in a toolbox and never in your spine. They get mangled and tangled in the nerves of the patients, and it is just misery in their lives. With that said, who better to talk about the Banaji spine procedures than a recipient of those procedures? And
in today's Back to Life segment, we will talk to a patient of the Banaji Spine Institute who went from living a life that was restricted by pain and discomfort through their journey of finding the Banaji Spine Institute and are now living pain-free.
It is my pleasure to introduce to the program from Lakeland, Florida, Dr. Stephanie Rapke. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'll be happy to talk to you and answer any questions you have. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Well, why don't you tell us how you came to be in pain? Were you in some sort of accident, or was it something degenerative in nature?
Well, what happened first was my daughter was born. I was about 30.
Okay.
I was 30 when she was born.
Sure.
And right after she was born, I lifted something heavy, and I hurt my low back.
Ooh.
I was evaluated, and I found out that I had spinal stenosis of herniated disc at L4-5.
Okay.
Well, I went through almost every non-surgical treatment for 6 years.
Wow.
And I was getting worse with local pain radiating down my legs. So I went to Johns Hopkins, and I had a spinal fusion at L4-5S1. Now, that did help me greatly. I did physical therapy. I got back to doing everything. I exercised a lot. And I'm a very active person, working full-time, having children, being active.
Can I stop you for 1 second? Ask how long the recovery took you?
I was in the hospital for 10 days, and I felt like I would never get out of the hospital. It was terrible. They had to take a bone graft from my hip, and I had severe pain there. I was on narcotic medication for a long time. I was home for 7 weeks.
Wow.
It was a very prolonged recovery on pain medicine for a long time. But I finally, eventually, many months later, gradually got back to doing my normal activities. But it did take many, many months.
Okay.
Well, I exercised, and then another 6 years later, I overdid it. I lifted an air conditioner. I was terrible.
What were you thinking?
A window air conditioner.
But still, those are heavy.
Because I tend to overdo it. Well, after that, I really had bad pain. And what happened was the pain was a little bit higher on my back. And associated with this was progressive numbness and weakness of my legs. I actually felt like I was walking through molasses. And I was trying to work. I was living in the Seattle area. I remember walking across the street, and I felt like I was in slow motion. This was terrible. They did MRIs, and above the level of the fusion was spinal stenosis and overgrowth of bone and a herniated disc at lumbar 3L3, where I did not have a fusion.
Okay.
Well, I did not want a major operation because I was afraid of it. I knew that I could get another problem, just like I did this time.
Right.
So I had epidural injections. I went through so many treatments. Physical therapy made me worse. Acupuncture, radiofrequency ablation, pain medicine, whatever you could think of, and none of them really worked.
So basically just bringing you some temporary relief. At the time you realized it wasn't long-lasting, what did you do?
I didn't even know what to do. I had no idea. I was like giving up.
Right.
Well, what happened was I moved to Florida. I guess God was with me. I moved to Florida, and I saw an advertisement in the newspaper about the Banaji Institute. the arthroscopic spinal surgery, minimally invasive.
Sure.
And they said they give you a free consultation. You bring your MRI.
Right.
So I went there with my husband, and they looked at the MRI, and they said that I was a very good candidate for this more limited procedure.
Sure.
That I did have something at L3, but they had a very good chance of relieving it with the arthroscope, and that I would go in one day, have the procedure, I would have a drain in place, I would come back the next day, and then I could go back to work. And the good news was I worked 20 minutes away from their center. I mean, this was the only center in the world that was really doing it. I just absolutely could not believe that I'd moved from Seattle down to Florida right near the Banaji Institute.
That was meant to be.
Stars aligning.
Exactly.
That's what it was.
Exactly.
That's what happened. And so then, do you want me to continue and tell you what the experience was?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
When you step foot inside the institute and you had your in-person evaluation, why don't you?
Well, I remember going over my MRI completely with Dr. Banaji.
Okay.
You know, he reviewed it. He's an expert in reviewing the MRIs and explaining about the surgery. And I understood all of the details. I mean, I didn't know everything, you know, and I didn't say that I was a doctor so I would understand more because this was new to me.
Right.
But I understood that they would use a laser to sort of ream out the area of the bone or scar tissue or intervertebral disc, whatever was there, and it was explained that the area where my problem was in lower down in the spine than the spinal cord, but it was pressing on all of the nerve roots that went into my legs.
Okay.
So that's why both of the legs were affected the same, and it was giving me weakness and numbness and heaviness. And I was worried that I was going to end up in a wheelchair if I didn't do something because it was pressing on all the nerves.
I bet.
It was very serious.
And we see that all the time.
Right.
Now,
it was
with
called
this
the Cauda equina syndrome. That's
yes.
what they called it. Yeah.
We have a lot of people that ask about that, by the way.
Right.
So when you mentioned the laser is just one of many patented exclusive tools that they use. It's not the only one. I just wanted to clarify.
Right.
So
this was about 10 years ago, so I don't know exactly what happened since then.
Right.
But that sort of stood out in my mind, the understanding of the laser. Right.
Sure. So what did you think about the whole conscious IV sedation?
It didn't bother me at all. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm the kind of person that, you know, I had my child was born. I was in 40 hours of labor and I got nothing. So they said it would be some local discomfort a little bit, but that they wanted to speak to me and understand what I was feeling. I didn't seem to have any problem because I knew that I really wouldn't be anxious.
Okay.
I was extremely excited to go through it because I wanted to get rid of the pain. So I wasn't worried about that at all.
I'm gonna cut you off for just a second because we're almost out of time. So we're gonna place you in the operating room. There you are being operated on.
Right.
Did you watch?
I watched it on the camera. I saw what they were doing, and then you wouldn't believe it. They got me off the table. I had no symptoms whatsoever. It was a miracle.
Right there on the table.
Every single symptom immediately was gone.
That's fantastic.
And it's been gone ever since. I've never had any recurrence. I work at the gym. I do everything. I can't believe it. It gave me my life back. I can't imagine. I should have had this for the first procedure. Maybe I wouldn't have needed any other procedures.
And there you have it. And that's why we never advocate for hardware because it causes so many more problems.
Listen, I'm not the surgeon who makes a recommendation, but at least for me as a patient, this was the absolute best thing that I could have done, and I wish I'd known about it before. If I was a candidate, I would have had it without the hardware. I mean, I can't make a standard recommendation, but I'm saying from my point of view, I would have preferred this without having all the metal and screws in my back.
So in stark contrast to your hardware fusion surgery, how long was your recovery process?
I didn't have any recovery. I went back to work after they removed the drain. There was no recovery time.
So basically,
I did
the next day.
everything the next day, and then I went back, and then I went to work. I didn't have any recovery.
Do not.
Because I was weak from so many months of not doing that much.
Right.
I took physical therapy. I did it at home, and I got back to doing everything. There was absolutely no pain. I had no pain after it, so there was no pain from the procedure.
Yes.
So don't go ahead and start to lift their conditioners now.
Yeah, no
More
air conditioning.
lifting.
Mm-mm.
Yes.
That's
No,
off
I'm
your
not
list.
lifting any more air conditioners anymore. But
right.
you know what? I can do whatever I want. In fact, I went on. I had another baby. I mean, my life has been normal. I haven't had any disabilities. I've been able to live my life the way I wanted.
You better be sending us pictures of you and your family and having fun, because that's what it's all about, and that's what they live for.
They're going to have me on a video so you can watch me on TV.
Exactly.
Yeah, they shot a piece
around the track
for TV.
where I'm running.
I know.
It's incredible.
And I can't wait for it to air. But in addition to that, as you continue, we want pictures. We want to see you. Post them on Facebook. Let people see so that they know that there's an option out there and that it's not a scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not scary at all. It's not scary to get back your life.
Absolutely.
That's all I can say. You just move forward. You get back your life, and it's worth everything.
You can hear the
to
emotion
have a
in her
normal
voice.
life without pain.
Well, I have a smile from ear to ear just talking to you because it's so powerful.
I can't speak I tell everybody about Dr. Banaji and how I came to Florida and I couldn't believe that I was right near his office. I mean, it's just a weird fluke. I was just extremely lucky to meet with Dr. Banaji and have his wonderful staff treat me there. And I have to say, everybody there was wonderful, from the people in the intake, the people in the recovery room who got me laughing and gave me snacks. Dr. Banaji is wonderful. Everybody there was wonderful. I even gave a seminar afterward to the patients because I was such a gung-ho person for the procedure, and I would do anything to highly recommend them.
Well,
I can't recommend them any higher than I am.
Thank you so much. Dr.
Anytime.
Stephanie
Thank
Rapke,
you.
thank you for sharing
asking
your story of
Thank
recovery.
you. Okay, bye-bye.
We appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
When you hear a patient like that, it really brings about all sorts of emotion. You don't need to suffer in pain. Reach out to Banaji at 855-267-0483 or visit Banaji.com. Coming up, we're going to talk about animal prosthetics. It's really touching story. Make sure you stay tuned. You're listening to American Medicine Today. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Banaji created, perfected, and patented the Banaji spine procedures. Using his genius, Banaji invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Banaji spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Banaji succeeds where others fail.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Banaji Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Banaji spine procedures, Alfred Banaji, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Banaji and your host, Kimberly Brumell.
Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Brumell, joined by Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here.
Jeff Wagstaff.
Hello.
And world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Banaji.
Hello.
Now, an article recently caught our attention about a pony named Angel Marie who was too crippled to walk. Then a certified, orthotist?
I believe so.
In Virginia, named Derek Campana, came to her rescue, designing a new prosthetic limb for Angel Marie, allowing her to walk again. It was a real touching story, and we invited Derek on to talk about it. So thank you for being here.
You do great work, Derek. In
Yes.
fact, the media has even dubbed you the Dr. Doolittle of animal prosthetics.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that nickname?
Hey, I just heard that myself a few weeks ago. Hey, I'll take it,
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Very cool.
So tell us about Angel Marie and that story, because actually, Kimberly, you're the one that found this story and sent it to me.
It was
and you were like,
it was so
you always-
inspiring and heartbreaking at the same time. Yeah.
Tell us about
we
it.
get a lot of animals that have these types of stories, and Angel Marie is definitely a special one. She was stepped on at about 2 days old and after birth, and by her mother, and broke one of the legs severely and injured the other one. So her owner, Lenny, came to us and asked if we could be of assistance, and we built her an orthotic device and a prosthetic device, and she's adapted to them over the last about 6 months.
We saw the photos. Is she a mini?
She is a mini pony, mini horse actually. So, because she's full grown now.
She's absolutely adorable in the photos.
Now, and Derek, you've got a lot of great stories, and we'll get into a bunch of those, but you actually started out making prosthetic limbs for humans. What made you transition into animals?
We had a dog named Charles come into my human prosthetic company, and it was kind of a shock because at that point, around 12 years ago, no one's ever heard of doing anything like that. And I said, I'll give it a try. And I did, and it was successful, and a light bulb went off, and I said, hey, I should start a business. I know there's a lot of animals out there in need of these types of services, and we've grown into the big worldwide company we are today.
You told us about some. Were you going to say something, Jeff?
Well, I didn't know. I was going to Derek or Dr. Doolittle, whichever you prefer to be called.
Dr. Derek Doolittle.
It's just such an incredible mission that you're doing.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, can the average veterinarian, if he came across this across the country, are they able to reach out to you and then fit animals, or do they have to come directly to you?
No, we do this. 80 to 90% of every patient we see is non-local, so I never actually end up seeing them. We send casting kits all over the world. We have instructional videos on how to cast for orthotic and prosthetic devices. I talk to surgeons every day, and we try to educate them on our technologies and how to do amputations with a prosthesis in mind. Just recently I created something called an IPOP, an immediate post-operative prosthesis. So if I know ahead of time you're going to do an amputation, we can fit this immediate post-operatively. A dog or any other animal can wake up on all fours with no downtime, and that helps to transition the animal to the definitive prosthesis a lot easier.
And how long does it typically take these animals to adapt to that? Because we've filmed for our television version, we went to Clearwater Marine Aquarium and spoke with everybody that had to do with Winter the dolphins. You know, a dolphin's tail, that whole thing takes a while, doesn't it? Or do some of them take to it immediately?
It's all over the board, like you just said. I used to work with the guy. I used to work for Hanger Prosthetics. The same guy that did
Winter
the dolphin.
Yep.
And
Very cool.
yeah, it's all over the board. Some adapt to them right away, like I said, and some never do. We can kind of generalize on how a dog or animal will react just from their breed, size, weight, things like that. But you never know. That's the hard part about my company and field in general.
When you talk about some of these challenging stories, I mean, you helped an elephant in Thailand whose leg was blown off by a landmine. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it was almost 2 years ago now. This elephant crossing the Burmese border into Thailand stepped on a landmine. It was about 10 years ago now. It takes elephants' legs a really long time to heal. They were fitted by local prosthetists in Thailand with a prosthesis originally, and they wanted help updating the design. So I went over there, I casted their legs, and helped with the design on the prosthesis that these elephants have now. There's two, one named Moshe and one named Modala.
And what do you make something like that out of for an animal that big and heavy?
A very thick carbon fiber, steel for the uprights, and actually car parts, engine parts. You kind of have to be creative with some of these designs.
I can imagine. Wow. Like Robo Elephant. and so they're walking around, they're fine?
Yeah, it's funny. The elephants do better than almost any other animal I've ever seen. They're very
smart
and aware of obstacles in the way of even their artificial leg, and they can circumduct or lift their leg accordingly by the inch over these little obstacles. It's amazing what they can do.
Unbelievable.
We know that elephants are very, very intelligent. When you were over there fitting them, what was the interaction with the elephant like? Do you think that they understood that you were there to help them? What was that relationship that you established with them like?
Definitely. Luckily, they've had trainers for a very long time, so they listen to everything they say. I can tell you the night before casting their legs, I was sleeping under a bug net and sweating my butt off, not because of the heat, but because of the anxiety of what I was about to do. And I was thinking I could get trampled, but no, they were the greatest animals I've ever encountered. Like you said, so smart. Their trainers could just tell them to lift that arm right up, and they allowed me to cast that leg like it was nothing.
What is it like helping animals, because they can't thank you in return, but do they show some sort of gratitude towards you?
Definitely. I mean, you can see it in their demeanor, their tails wagging, their eyes sparkling. You can tell when a dog's happy or sad, just like a person. So when we fit these devices on our patients, on these animals, people's pets, we can see when they're happy, and that's all I need to just keep going on. That's the best part of my job.
Any of these really difficult cases that you've had that you've run into that you couldn't even tackle yourself?
All the time. That's the hardest part, really, of the job, beyond the lack of communication, is the fact that I can't help every single patient that comes across my table. There are limitations, especially with prosthetics. Insurance is an issue, so we have to be very creative and cost-effective with what we make. Unlike the human side, where these prosthetics can cost $60,000 or $100,000, we have to keep these around $1,000. And, animals have fur, so we can't use the same types of suspension that we do in people. So there are definitely limitations, and I'm working every day to, broaden my patient base with technology and, just things that we can do to change the field and make us be able to see more patients.
If people are watching or listening and they would like to donate to the cause to help you help these other animals, how could they reach you to do so?
There is a Donate Now button on our website. We are updating our website, which is going to be launched in a couple of weeks, but the current one does have that button.
Okay.
And what that does is we use all that money to fit dogs and animals from sanctuaries and rescue groups that can't afford these types of devices. So that's how we get them adopted a lot of the time, is just fitting these nice devices on them.
Can you go ahead and give them the website address?
It's www.animalorthocare.com.
Awesome. And are there any other animals that you like? Do you work on birds? Are there any that you won't work on? If I have a pet lizard who has to have his leg removed, can you make a little one for that guy?
Not necessarily. Sometimes, we use 3D printing on certain things. For example, if there is a bird or dog over in Australia, they can actually take a CT or MRI and send that to us through an email, and we can take that and 3D print a positive mold and build upon that. I'm actually doing a talon for an eagle's foot right now. I've done sheep, deer, llama, goat, like you said, elephant, turtles, tons of different things. But like I said, there are limitations to what we can do. But I'm always keeping an open mind, and I definitely get an email every day that's like a lizard or guinea pig. So I try when I can.
That's actually reminds me of another article that you had sent me, Kimberly, about the bald eagle. Do you remember that one?
Yes, and the beak.
Yeah, I think
they 3D printed.
I think it was shot off. Are you familiar with the story, Derek?
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with every prosthetic story, believe me.
Yeah.
So basically, I think the bald eagle's beak was shot off. I don't know if intentionally or accidentally by a hunter, but it was completely missing.
And he can't eat.
And then he can't eat, right? And he was going to starve to death, so they built a prosthetic beak. That must have been pretty difficult.
Yeah, they did that with a toucan as well, so they 3D printed a prosthetic beak for those two just so they can survive.
Derek, as an animal lover, I am confident that there is a special place in heaven for you, sir.
Absolutely.
I hope so. We try our hardest to see as many patients and help as many patients as we can, and that's our goal, is just to really raise awareness about the field. I think that not a lot of people know that these technologies exist, and we're here to not only, elongate the lives of their pets, but also save people a lot of money. The biggest thing we do is we fit knee braces on dogs that have ruptured ACLs, and we can actually get them to heal if they're a partial tear for a fraction of the cost non-surgically. So that's one thing that people don't realize.
You're a good man. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Certified orthotist in Virginia named Derek Campana. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Guys.
Dr. Doolittle Derek.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
What a cool nickname.
I know.
Have a good day, guys.
Thanks a lot,
Take care,
Derek.
brother.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Great work.
Wow. Just stuff like that gets to me because they're so helpless.
Well, and there's so many people that don't care.
I know.
They don't care about their animals. So somebody that goes out of their way and makes it a career helping animals, you gotta love somebody
It's a
like
good
that.
thing. Yes.
And on the flip side, there's a special place in hell for those people.
A good point.
Exactly. Well, make sure you stay tuned because coming up after the break, I think it's a Trump's triumph, but also what's new in American medicine today. So make sure you stay tuned. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Banaji created, perfected, and patented the Banaji spine procedures. Using his genius, Banaji invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Banaji spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Banaji succeeds where others fail.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Banaji Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Banaji spine procedures, Alfred Banaji, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Banaji and your host, Kimberly Brummel.
Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Brummel, joined by Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here.
Jeff Wagstaff.
Thanks for having me, Kimberly.
Absolutely. And world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Banaji.
Hi.
Hi.
Guess what it's time for?
Trump's triumphs.
I love that sounder.
I know you do.
It's just
Kimberly
great.
lights up when that goes off.
So, Doc, we're going to talk about some of the latest hopeful progress that we have going on for revamping the VA system, correct?
Yeah, well, it's about time, don't you think?
Damn right. It's about
Well,
time.
one of the things the president already signed an executive order on April 19 that really expand the opportunities for the veterans to go and seek attention on the private sector. That is probably an incredible idea. We're talking about this idea for at least 3 years.
Yes.
So I don't know if somebody listened or just common sense came to the system. And right now, they can bypass the VA doctors and go to the private sector doctors to receive the treatment as much as they need it. I don't know if this is an idea that is going to work well if it is not practically directed. Because remember, the great percentage of these veterans, they have multiple problems.
Right.
Not only they have the injuries, but they also have emotional problems.
Yes.
So they will need to have a psychiatric type of evaluation. They will need to have assistance for the pain problems that they have, the drug type of adhesions that they already have. Then, because they are addicted to a drug, it's going to be difficult also to go in a private sector without really having some type of an understanding how to treat these people.
Sure.
Remember, one of the most important things right now in the country, and the president also signed a type of a correction for the opiates. So he is attacking the prescriptions for opiates, and but these individuals, they have an addiction that is being maintained for years.
Right.
And one of the problems with the VA is that they are giving pain medication to the soldiers, to the veterans, without any discrimination. It's just they give them, that's it.
Correct.
So
Well, it's an easy fix in their eyes. You know, just, I don't know what to do with you here, take this.
yeah, but when it goes the thing to the private market, remember that the private market will demand on the physicians to be alert on the drug addiction.
Correct.
So if doctors start to prescribe like crazy opiates, then they're going to lose their license.
Sure.
So they are not going to do that. So the component of how to treat is going to be a multi-center type of or multi-specialty type of a treatment. They will need to have a psychiatric care. They will need to have some type of a detox mechanism. They will need to have some counseling.
Sure.
And then they will need to be treated for the pain that they have.
Right.
Great percentage of these people are back pain. And the back pain is associated not only because of the service that they did, falls, accidents, bullets, and whatever this.
Even just marching around in boots for hours and days
Jumping
at a
out
time.
of planes, everything. Yeah.
So, and when you have back pain, it's very difficult to treat. So, thanks to the development that we have through the lot of years looking back problems, we can correct the back pain. But if you go really in the market, the people go, back pain cannot be treated.
Right.
And then they go directly to physical therapy, the rehabilitation on exercises and drugs.
Right.
And antidepressives and muscle relaxants.
Right.
What makes the patient not only worse. So it's a big now. It's fantastic that this law passed.
Yes.
But the market is going to need to be
Okay.
seriously reevaluated how they're going to treat it.
But one of the great things is there's finally accountability. They can finally demote, suspend, fire for poor performance and misconduct. That's something that they never had the ability to do before. So, yay, kudos to Trump for putting that in.
My favorite part is
what's amazing. That is something that we said since
Years
the
ago.
beginning.
Yes.
exactly
Years
Yeah.
ago, we said the problem with the VA is not only that it's a bad service, but it's a non-accountable responsibility on the individuals that were hired there.
And how about closing wasteful facilities?
That's what I was going to say.
Oh my
yeah.
God, 430 vacant buildings and 735 described as underutilized, costing the federal government $25 million
a year.
That money could be better serviced right back to the servicemen and women of this country to
Feed
go
it
in
right
for
back
treatment.
into the system. Yeah,
Absolutely.
For treatment.
Doc, as long as the show's been in existence, we've talked about what a mess the VA is.
Yes.
And it seems like the more we talk about it, the more we realize how bad it is. Would it be feasible to simply shut the VA down and take the same money that we use to fund the VA and create a private insurance or a government insurance only for veterans that could use that insurance in the private sector? It just seems like there's so much waste. Let's give every one of those dollars to the veterans.
I think a big no is coming. He's going to say you don't want the government in your
Business.
yeah.
But we don't want them running hospitals either. They're incompetent.
Well, the major trouble here is that what you said probably is going to be a good idea. Problem is, we talk about that one.
Yes.
We said that we need to transfer the veterans to a private insurance sector that is going to have some sort of system associated with the federal. So they are going to supply some solutions. And instead of giving the money to the VA hospitals, they should close the VA hospitals. They should give that money. Make some negotiation with the insurance company to cover the veterans, and then the veterans have an insurance, but it's a natural, normal insurance, commercial insurance, and then he's going to be treated totally different because it's going to be centers that they are going to study him. They're going to deliver better care. Then they're going to direct care, and they're going to start to learn how to treat veterans. We don't know how to treat veterans,
Right.
and that is the problem right now.
And they didn't either, because some of the scandals in October of 2014, there was a patient that didn't have sheets, pajamas, proper toiletry, and the hospital spent millions on furniture. There's another story. There was a wait list from 2013, had 2,700 names on it, including 37 people that died awaiting care.
terrible.
I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah,
so
but
hopefully,
the responsible person of that was fired. That's the first high executive
Right.
in after this law. After this law passed, that for first time this
the
executive was
consequences.
fired.
But the thing that I've learned from being on this show is that the VA is nothing but a black hole that our country's throwing money in, and our veterans deserve better.
Indeed.
And
Yes.
they're being used billions of dollars on these facilities that they are totally a waste. I mean, if you go and you see these facilities are like fantastic hotels with a really horrible type of service.
well, especially if you're not getting sheets and pajamas and proper toiletry. Who cares about the building?
Let alone healthcare.
But it's a Trump's triumph for sure, because we're taking giant leaps forward. So thank you for listening to American Medicine Today. Make sure that you check us out on Bloomberg as we say goodbye to our flagship station, News Radio 970 WFLA. But if you listen on another station, make sure you stay tuned, because we'll be back with some exciting discussions. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Banaji created, perfected, and patented the Banaji spine procedures. Using his genius, Banaji invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Banaji spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Banaji succeeds where others fail.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Banaji Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Banaji spine procedures, Alfred Banaji, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Banaji and your host, Kimberly Bermel.
Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm getting from the Peanut Gallery some talks behind the scenes here, and I only wish all of you were privy to it. Anyway, thank you for still listening if you're on an affiliate station. I am joined by my friend Ethan Euchre.
Always glad to be here.
Who never powders his nose, and Jeff Wagstaff over there.
Maybe I should stop.
Call me old shiny nose.
And world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. Alfred Banaji of the Banaji Spine Institute.
No comments.
All right. Well, this is very interesting. Guide dogs provide a crucial service not only to the visually impaired, but also to the disabled and even veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. And joining us right now is Susie Wilburn, Director of Admissions at Southeastern Guide Dogs in Palmetto, Florida. And she's on to tell us how these extraordinary dogs help transform lives. Thanks for joining us, Susie.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And we're actually going to be filming an episode for the television version of American Medicine Today next week. And it's a really cool place and program that you guys have down there in Palmetto at Southeastern Guide Dogs. So, but tell us about you, Susie, because it's an interesting story. You were an athlete whose vision started to deteriorate, correct?
That's right. I played soccer and softball and volleyball and anything I could get my hands on growing up from the time I was about 4, all the way until my vision started to change, and I was about 27 when I first noticed a problem, and no one in my family had vision problems, so it was a little bit of a shock. I was working on a computer, and when I look at the center of the screen, occasionally the cursor would disappear. Oh. And I did what all great athletes do when they think they're invincible, and it completely ignored the issue because I didn't want to think something was wrong with me. So it took about 6 months for me to start to drive home into a busy intersection and not be able to find the traffic light.
And now, so this is almost like the opposite of tunnel vision, right? Yeah. It was the center of your vision that started to go.
Wow.
It is absolutely the opposite of tunnel vision. So when I look forward, if you were on a 4-lane road with buildings on each side, I cannot see the 4 lanes. I can see the buildings. So that might help you understand the lack of vision I have.
So you have peripheral vision, just not the central vision.
I do. I have peripheral vision, and I have some issues with colors. The blues and blacks and orange and pink look the same to me. So it's been a huge adjustment. I had to stop playing sports immediately.
Right.
And we kind of went through some adjustments, which were really tough for somebody who thought they were invincible and never had health issues.
I bet. So when did you decide that you needed, I guess, a guide dog, or you needed a little assistance? Because especially being, as you said, a stubborn athlete who ignored it from the very beginning, to take that step to make the call must have been a big step.
It was, and it was an interesting progression because I didn't think I was blind enough for a dog. I thought people who had a dog couldn't see anything. So there was a lot of misconception and things out there that I didn't understand. So as I prepared to go back to work after I started to lose my vision, this place called the Division of Blind Services, it's a state agency that helps rehabilitate the visually impaired and blind, to go back to work, they offered an internship to me at this place called Southeastern Guide Dogs. And I had no idea what Southeastern Guide Dogs was, and I live about 8 minutes from this campus. So I came here, worked in human resources as an intern, and then started in the kennels with the big dogs, and I worked through management there, and everybody always asked me why I didn't have a dog, and I always made some goofy excuse because I just wasn't ready to deal with the fact that I needed assistance. So it took me about 2.5 years of working here and watching the process before I decided that it was going to be right for me, and boy, was I an idiot for waiting that long.
So what is that process like? Because I know, obviously, if you're a candidate for a dog and you come to Southeastern Guide Dogs, there's two different things going on here. They breed their own dogs, correct, and train the dogs. And then on the other end, you almost have to become a student if you're up for adopting a dog, right?
Absolutely. So when we, in the admission side of things, when somebody's looking to get a dog, we have a whole application process where we're looking for information about that applicant to help us determine first if they're capable of having a dog, if it's the right thing for them, because it's not right for everybody. Mm-hmm. But we're also looking to see what kind of dog they need. Look, for me, I work 8 hours a day. I travel on airplanes. I do presentations. I have to have a dog that can handle that lifestyle, where there's somebody who might work in downtown Tampa on that busy traffic down through downtown, and they needed a different dog than I would need. Right. So there's a lot of art and science to how we put the two together. Mm-hmm. But when the team leaves here, it's nothing short of a miracle to watch it happen.
Susie, as touching as it is, I can only imagine the impact a dog has had on your life or somebody else who's visually impaired. I learned about your program from another angle. There's a local attorney here, Joe Saunders, who's a partner, Saunders and Walker, here in the Tampa Bay area, who is a friend. And I've been in his office, and he trains guide dogs. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand the process, but it's absolutely incredible. They receive a puppy. They have that dog in their home for an entire year. And then once they have trained it, it almost sounded heartbreaking to me, but he explained how they would take the dog to a ceremony and award the dog to the person who was going to be using it. And all I could think of is the huge hole you'd have in your heart after getting attached to that puppy. Mm-hmm. But he said, don't worry, because as soon as we award the dog, we get a new puppy to train. Right. So it's such a great...
puppy raisers do that.
It's such a great, rewarding opportunity for families like that and taking care of people in need.
Well, and one of the great things that we offer for our puppy raisers that do raise a puppy that's matched with someone is we have this thing here called Puppy Raiser Day, where while the student is in the middle of training with that dog, mm-hmm. we have a brunch and a ceremony, and we invite that family to come meet the person and say goodbye to the dog for one last time. Ooh, it makes me emotional just thinking about it. Yeah. But it's sometimes those partnerships, when they meet the person who received their dog, they spend a lifetime together with them. They vacation together. They just have this great relationship, because although that puppy raiser wanted that dog and loved that dog, the person who got it needed that dog.
It's a total life changer.
It is. Mm-hmm. For me, he keeps me sane, but he saves my life almost every day. He saved my marriage. Really? And the person who raised him was 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
We can hear it in your voice.
Idea. I've been with him almost 6 years, and I can't talk about it without being emotional, because it's just everything.
The assessment process is pretty grueling. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many dogs don't make the cut?
You'd be surprised. About 28% of the dogs that come in for training make it as guide dogs. Wow. So it's pretty stringent. And what we do at Southeastern is we do assessments throughout the dog's lifetime, mm-hmm. starting at about 8 weeks old. We start to ask them questions about what they like to do. Sure. Do you like to walk on this surface? Are you comfortable with this cape being on you? How do you like to walk on a leash? And if at any time during these processes the dogs say, you know what, I don't like that, mm-hmm. then we're not going to ask them to continue to do it, because it's not fair to them.
Correct. Sure.
And we find alternate careers for our dogs that don't want to be guide dogs. We have our program for fully sighted veterans who have been diagnosed with service-related post-traumatic stress disorder. Right. That's a little less stressful than being a guide dog. Carson knows 40 commands in harness, and he's responsible for my life. Mm-hmm. The PTSD dogs are an emotional responsibility. Mm-hmm. They have less commands. It's a little less stressful for them, but it's just as impactful for the handler.
Hey, Susie, we're just about out of time, but very quickly, because I know it's very important, Southeastern Guide Dogs rely solely on donations, right? And they give these dogs to people. They don't charge anybody for these animals. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that. I know you have to raise like $9 million every year.
And how people can help.
Exactly.
Well, absolutely. A lot of our information can be found on our website, guidedogs.org, mm-hmm. but you can volunteer, you can donate, and we do not take any government funding. It's all by the generosity of private donors. These dogs are given to the students, and then they spend the next 7 to 9 years, and we have a lifetime commitment to that team. So we have a whole department in my department that all they do all day long is go visit these people all over the country to make sure their teams are still successful and offer assistance. That is rare in the world. To follow a team for nearly 10 years just to say we're here in case you need us.
So what's your website real quick?
www.guidedogs.org.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Susie Wilburn, Director of Admissions at Southeastern Guide Dogs in Palmetto, Florida. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next week, Susie.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Aw,
Very cool place.
absolutely. And doing a lot to help anyone with PTSD and disabled veterans and blind people, or those that are in the process of going blind. Can't even imagine what that's got to be like. Staring straight ahead, you can't
If
see.
you're so inclined, a very worthy cause.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Thank you for joining us on the program. That wraps everything up here on American Medicine Today. You can like us on Facebook or tweet at Dr. Banaji using hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We always like to hear from you. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Banaji created, perfected, and patented the Banaji spine procedures. Using his genius, Banaji invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Banaji spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Banaji succeeds where others fail.